you for joining today's webinar. We're just going to give everyone just a couple more seconds to join. Make sure we get everyone. All right, I see people piling in, so I say we get started, Phil. That sound good?
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for joining today's webinar, an exclusive event for finance leaders in finance leaders in healthcare. 30 minutes to a faster HIPAA compliant close. Just a few things before we get started. This is going to be a 30-minute event with a Q&A at the end. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to use the questions box in the top right corner. The recording and the slide deck will be sent out within 24 hours after the event. And I know I mentioned on a few of the communications, but by joining today's event, you have earned a meal delivery service gift card. I will send out a survey in just a second, but those will also be sent out to you within 24 hours following this presentation. With that, for those of you who are with us, if you want to choose which meal delivery service gift card you would like, you can do so right here. We have an option of Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, and if you wanted to donate yours to No Kids Go Hungry, that would be much appreciated. We will send a donation on your behalf. Let it go on for a couple more seconds. All right, thank you, everyone. And just quickly as an agenda, quick intro, and we are going to meet your host. Then we are going to dive into the current state of the finance industry in healthcare. And then the meat of the presentation, how AI-enabled Cloud ERP can speed up your close. And just a quick wrap-up and Q&A session at the end. For those of you who don't know Atlantic, we are the business applications division focusing on people, process, and technology. We have 30 plus years of consulting experience in the space, primarily focusing on ERP, CRM, marketing automation, and data and AI solutions. As a member of Atlantic, we are also able to work with managed print, cybersecurity, managed IT, and more. And joining me today, we have Phil Smith. Phil, hello.
Howdy. Thanks everyone for joining. As Zach said, my name's Phil. I have been helping people select ERP solutions for 20 years now. A lot of that has been spent with Sage Intacct. And if you've been working with businesses on their ERP for 20 years, I've earned all this gray hair along the way. But I'm thrilled to talk to you today about how we may be able to help you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Phil. Appreciate that. And we have one more quick question before we get started, just to read the room a little bit. We are curious on what's the biggest headache when it comes to your financial processes today? I know there's a lot. It could be too many manual processes, repetitive work for different locations you have to deal with, just a lot of systems you need to worry about, maintaining compliance people, especially as you add headcount. Give a few more seconds just for people to respond. All right. Yeah, definitely getting a good mix of folks, maintaining compliance as well as just dealing with all the locations. And with that, Phil, I am going to pass it over to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Zach. So let's take a 30,000 foot view of what finance looks like in the healthcare industry today. And what we have seen, and this is an ongoing situation, is that regulatory systems are here to stay. The only thing that's really permanent is change. The regulations continue to change, whether that's financial regulations or healthcare regulations. There's just tons of that sort of thing going on. We see a lot of uncertainty as to what the landscape is going to look like in just a year or two or even sooner. And part of that is being driven by accelerated mergers and acquisitions. So healthcare providers are either purchasing other healthcare providers to grow their footprint. They're fighting that off, trying to maintain what they have. And in many cases, they're looking to be able to sell their practices sometime in the future. So as we look at that, that creates some issues. Next slide. What we see is that all of those issues are directly impacting the finance department. 83% of healthcare leaders report that they're responsible to drive those operational changes. They're responsible to drive those technology changes. And that's not really what people went into finance to do, but they end up having to do that. They need to get their information more rapidly than they are now. They need to make decisions in real time. And the legacy systems that are out there just really can't handle that. Now, whether you're on a 40-year-old platform that's been upgraded over and over again, built on old language that nobody uses anymore, or whether you're on something like QuickBooks, you're looking for a system that will help you improve upon all that. So what ends up happening is you have disparate systems because none of them are handling one thing all that particularly well, or worse yet, you're doing a ton of it in spreadsheets. So that leads to the next point, which is that 25% of CFOs are reporting burnout. We'll talk about this some more as we go along, but leading those financial decisions is a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of work, and it keeps people at the office longer than they wish they were. It makes them miss time with their families, and it's just a lot of stress. So next, please. So the things that the modern CFO needs, first and foremost, compliance. Like I mentioned already, we need to be compliant with the regulatory agencies. We need to be HIPAA compliant, but we also need to be audit compliant. We need to have our financials in order, and our vendors are also looking for various types of compliance as well. Integration, hinted at that already. We want to be able to take our systems that are currently not talking to each other and get those so that they are talking to each other, so that we're not having to manually input data 2 times, 3 times. We want visibility to what's out there, what's going on in the practice. We don't want to have to wait until after the month-end close or the year-end close to see how we're performing, how healthy is our organization. We want to see trends as they occur, as opposed to reacting to things that happened 2, 4, 6 weeks ago. We want to be more efficient. Like we said, growth is a major driver for what's going on. If you're green, you're growing. If you're ripe, you're rotting. So as we bring in new practices, practice areas, we want to be able to do that efficiently. We don't want to have to add so much headcount just to keep up with the back office stuff. Which takes us, again, these are all interrelated, scalability. Can we grow our business? So these are all must-haves. They're not nice-to-haves. These are things that you need right now to make things work more efficiently for you. Next. So let's talk about one of our existing clients. These folks are a nonprofit community health center. They used to be on one of those legacy platforms that I mentioned called Sage 100. They became a client of ours about 4 years ago. They have over 10 locations, hundreds of employees, and they're doing about $30 million in revenue when they came to us with this. They were looking for a handful of things. They were having problems tracking their revenue across the different locations. In addition to that, they're having trouble tracking the revenue based on what kind of practice was being done at those individual locations. Operations were growing rapidly. The system wasn't keeping up with it, so they wanted something that was a little bit more modern. And of course, compliance. Even though they're adding all this additional practice areas, all these additional locations, they still need to make sure that those folks who weren't using the same system are compliant. Next. So how we were able to speed things up for them using Cloud ERP that has AI capabilities built into it. We first showed them Sage Intacct. So Sage Intacct is the first and only financial management system that is endorsed by the AICPA. It's also HFMA peer reviewed to make sure that it takes care of healthcare companies exactly the way that it should. It has great audit capabilities. It's fully HIPAA compliant. It's high-tech compliant, and it includes an enforceable business associates agreement. Now, Intacct was the first ERP system to have an enforceable BAA, and there have been others that have brought that on since then. But I encourage you, if you are talking to somebody else, to ask them who will sign that BAA. In the case of Sage Intacct, it will be signed by a responsible person at Intacct. So the software itself is going to have that BAA associated with it, not just your implementation that would typically be signed by perhaps your provider. It gives you a lot of visibility. From a technology standpoint, it's tremendously improved over the legacy systems. There's no servers to maintain. You don't have to upgrade your solution every year or two. You don't have to decide whether or not you want to apply that upgrade, because Intacct is going to upgrade their system 4 times a year. This takes place during off hours, so it doesn't interrupt your business. And you don't pay for that. It's all built into the cost of the system. It uses something called dimensional accounting, which I'm going to talk about more here in a minute. But that really improves your reporting capabilities and gives you better real-time visibility to what's going on in your business. And then finally, it's designed to be able to integrate. So a couple of examples are your HR and payroll. It has strong integrations with a number of different payroll solutions, including ADP or UKG. It has a native integration capability with your EMR system. Note that that EMR will actually scrub any protected health information that may be in the EMR as it brings it in. So that's something that you don't have to worry about. Next. EMR Connect, as I say, it automatically brings the data in from multiple EMR systems without having to do any kind of a manual reconciliation, without having to input the data twice. So there's any EMR system, it's EMR agnostic, and it will bring it in if your EMR can get the data out, Intacct can get the data in. So again, that adds to your efficiency. Our existing client that I was telling you about has gotten great results from this, and it's allowed them to continue to scale without having to add the head count. So next, please. Now, we talked about dimensions, and what we're going to do in Sage Intacct, rather than having the traditional linear chart of accounts with the main account and then the sub accounts, instead you have dimensions. Now, those dimensions can be things like locations. It can be things like practice area, it can be a specific dimension, a specific practice. There's an employee dimension, and so the different physicians or practice leaders can be put into a specific dimension. And that allows you to tag every transaction that goes into the system with the appropriate items. So we can then go in and track revenue by practitioner. We can track the expense by the practice or practitioner. We can see how many people we have who are providing services. We can see the number of treatments that we've provided, the number of encounters, which most accounting systems really struggle with what we call, with that sort of reporting. So it does this automatically. Now, when you see the data, you'll see this dashboard over here on the right, and you can access that data any way you want. Everybody is a little bit different. Some of you and some of the reports that you're viewing are going to be more like the one in the bottom right-hand corner. where you just want to see the data line by line. But sometimes there's going to be things that you're going to want to see in a different visual representation, such as a bar chart or a pie graph. And you can consume the data in the way that makes the most sense to you. And then finally, across the top, you'll see these, they're called performance cards, those 4 large displays. Those are key performance indicators that y'all are wanting to keep a handle on a minute by minute basis. And so you can see if things are going in the wrong direction. Now, as you can see, this particular report shows everything going the way that we want it to, hence the green arrows. But if it's not going the way we want it to, we can change that, or it will show you something. If your revenue per patient is decreasing, it'll show you that. And you can start to dig into what's causing that and why. Next one. Okay. The next slide that we have here is on automation, increasing your efficiency. So in traditional systems, what you have to do is you have to send out a purchase order. That purchase order goes to your vendor. The vendor then delivers the items that you requested, and you get an invoice, and you have to manually enter that invoice line by line to see, does that invoice match the purchase order that we sent out? With an AP automation system that's powered by AI, instead, you receive the invoice via email or via hard copy, and you're able, if it's a hard copy, to scan it directly into the system, or you're able to take it from your email and put it into the system, which will then digitize that invoice, and it will start going through and it'll make sure that the line items match, that the total amount matches, that we're sending the check to the right place for the right amount, and that we haven't added an extra 0 or 2 in the process. So it digitizes it. It tells you this is all correct. You're able then to go in and review and make sure you don't have to trust it. You approve it, and it'll then automatically send out the payment in whatever fashion you choose, whether you need to send out a paper check or an ACH, or maybe they just want you to put it on their virtual card. You're able to do that. It does it much faster and allows you, again, to scale without having to add more headcount. Next. Some other automation tools that we have built into the system. We've already talked about EMR Connect, but let's talk a little bit about inventory automation. Perhaps your practice deals with a lot of durable medical equipment that you need to keep track of. We're able to help you with that. Perhaps we need to, let's say that you're in upstate New York and you have purchased some practices across the border, and those folks are dealing in Canadian dollars. We can help you with that. We can work with multi-currency. Advanced Audit Trail shows us everything that everybody has done. It's a permanent record that prevents any changes from being put into the system after the fact that can create all sorts of problems. And then finally, looking at that insights, we have a couple of items there that I really want to talk about: dynamic allocations and advanced ownership consolidations. So let's say you're a multi-unit practice, or a multi-location practice rather, and there are different practices within each of those locations. Now, if one of the practices is taking up 50% of the square footage of that practice, we probably want to charge that or allocate the electric bill to that one specific practice at 50%, as opposed to dividing them up equally. You can do it any way you want to, but you have that capability. Maybe it makes more sense for you, for your practice, to allocate that expense based on revenue or based on patients seen. You can take any factor that makes sense and build that out in advance so that you're automatically bringing in those expenses and assigning them to the part of the practice that should be getting that expense. The flip side of that is advanced ownership. Many of your practices are owned by a consortium of physicians, And some of those physicians own a larger percent. Some of them own a smaller percent. Not only that, some of them own 50% of one location, but only 10% of another. And we need to be able to take that information and spend it out to those individual practitioners in the way that they're entitled to receive their compensation. So Sage Intacct can do that automatically. Again, you just decide how you want to do that and set that up, and it will keep that going for you, as opposed to having to do manual adjustments in the system, or again, worse yet, you don't have to do that in Excel spreadsheets. It's also natively multi-entity. So if instead of locations, let's say that you want those to be different business operating entities, we're able to separate things out by entity, and we're able to report on the individual entity or location, and then roll all that up to a top level so that we can see what is the overall health of the organization. Next. So going back to our case study, so this nonprofit health center, in less than a year, they were able to reduce their audit prep time by 75%. So they were spending a quarter, they are now spending a quarter as much time on audit prep as they were in the past. As you know, if it's audit season, it's got to be done. So that doesn't mean that they shortened the number of days that they were spending. They shortened the number of hours that they were spending. They weren't working nights and weekends anymore to get their audit prep done. Another great win that they received was they were able to increase their year, or decrease rather, their year-end close by 50%. They were able to get those final numbers ready to go much more rapidly. And when we're looking at things like getting a business line of credit, or again, perhaps you want to sell the practice, having accurate numbers faster is something that's going to be of a tremendous benefit to the practice. So that is it, I believe, Zach. No, we still have a couple more. So one more, who all can benefit? Any kind of healthcare practice can benefit. Whether you're a senior living center, or you're focused on surgical centers or psychiatry, it really doesn't matter. Sage Intacct has the flexibility to give you the reporting and the data collection requirements that you need for any of these sorts of businesses. And if your practice happens to include multiple types of broad specialties, we're able to do that as well, as I've already mentioned. So it really works for just about anybody who is in healthcare right now. Next. All right.
Wonderful. Thank you, Phil. Now it's time for the audience Q&A. I know we had a couple roll in throughout this. Just definitely want to be conscious of time here. First one we had, which I'm also interested in. Can you walk us through what the timeline looks like? Let's say that we want Intacct, we want a cloud solution that can solve these problems. What does the implementation look like? Sort of, what do I need for that as well?
Okay, those are both very good questions. So the implementation time frame for Intacct typically runs between 90 and 120 days. It can be done in less time, and sometimes it will take more time. The things that are going to create the extensions, I'll tell you right now, are what does your data look like? How much data do you want to bring in? How detailed do you want that data to be? And it's also going to be making sure that your culture is in place to go ahead and make this change. So the primary reason that the process takes 90 to 120 days is because we build in a great deal of time for you to get used to the new system before we ask you to go live on it. So we spend a lot of time in testing. We want to make sure that it in fact is operating the way that you need it to. We're going to spend a lot of time on training, making sure that the end users are fully capable of using this new system. It's very user friendly. I've actually tinkered around in a bunch of different systems, and this is one of the easiest ones out there to actually do data entry in. And we can build a lot of safeguards around it so that people aren't able to do transactions without filling out the fields that they need to. So that you have all that information that gives you those reports that we were talking about. But we build that into the implementation process so that you're able to do that. What was the
Awesome.
second half of that question, Zach?
Second half is like, what do we need to do to prepare for? Is there anything in particular we need to do with our current ERP, or is there any data that we need to have?
So what you will want to do in advance is you're going to want to look at what is going on in your system and figure out, do I want to do this at all? I'm not going to tell you that this is something that is going to just automatically happen. There is going to be some effort required on your part and on the part of your staff. Um, so you want to, again, you want to make sure your culture is ready for it. But you don't need to worry about things like closing out periods. You don't need to worry about going in and completely cleaning up your data. We'll do a great deal of that as we bring it in. So you will get in your open and master transactions. You will get in all the active things that are going on in the business when we make the transfer. And when we're doing the training, you'll be training on your own data. So we'll do an initial data transfer into a sandbox test environment so that your team can work with that new system in their ample spare time while they're doing their day jobs. But they'll learn the new system while they're still doing their job. And then once it's time to cut over, we'll do a final data transfer of all the information that's in the system. You'll typically that takes place over the weekend, not always, but usually. So the finance staff leaves on Friday, they come back in on Monday, and they have a clean, fresh system with all their data already in it, ready to go, but it's current and up to date.
Got it. Thank you, Phil. I thought that was great. For the sake of time, I say we move on. But again, if there is any questions, you can reach out to us. And speaking of which, as a registrant of today's event, we do want to offer a special offer of a free financial health checkup out to everyone. This is a good place just to talk with Phil and the team. What financial headaches are you really having? We can figure out sort of where, what part of the system you spend a lot of time on, times that are more manual, and really dive into your specific use case, how AI and Sage can really help with that. If this is something you're interested in, feel free to use the QR code right here on the right. You can call your Atlantic account executive or email us at marketingteam@tomorrowsoffice.com. And with that, we want to thank you everyone for joining us. Really appreciate you taking time out of your day. Those of you who chose a gift card, you will be contacted within 24 hours, as well as the recording and the slide deck of this event will also be sent out shortly as well. Phil, is there anything else you want to leave the audience with?
Nope, just thank you very much. Really appreciate y'all joining us. Hope that we were able to give you some food for thought. And of course, if you want to talk more, we're here to talk.
Wonderful. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, everyone. We hope you have
Thanks.
a wonderful rest of your day.